Hello everyone, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Keisha and today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I hope to read this spring. I have not had the most riveting reading year so far, but spring is a time of newness and blooming flowers and new seasons. I'm really hoping that some of these books will bring me some new joy and laughter and maybe even some tears. Either way, as long as they are hitting me in my feelings, I'm here for it. So let's go ahead and talk about the books. I did break this up into different genre categories just because that was the easiest way to do this. And the first genre is going to be romance. And the first book that I have is Change of Plans by Cindy Rass. This is a romantic comedy. It's a workplace romance, and I'm currently in the middle of this one. I'm about a third of the way through, and it is so cute so far. The writing style is very quirky and reminiscent for me of Courtney Walsh and Carrie Winfrey. So this could potentially end up being a new favorite author for me, but stay tuned to find out. I had to pick this book for spring because this cover honestly looked so springy to me. So that's why I picked this one up. This is a clean romance as well, just in case you're wondering. There is some very mild language in it, but other than that, this one is pretty clean. Next up, I have Romancing the Grump by Jenny Proctor. This is, I think, the fourth book in the Appy's hockey romance series, and hockey season is coming to an end, so this is going to probably be the last book that I read this season, and then I want to save the rest of the series to complete when hockey season rolls back around in the fall/winter time. But I really do want to continue on in the series, and this one is a Grumpy Sunshine romance. This is another book following one of the hockey players from the Appy's team. This one is following Nathan, and I'm really excited to see kind of how all the different relationships for the different guys develop over the series. If you don't know anything about it, this is a clean rom-com type series that is written jointly by Emma St. Clair and Jenny Proctor. So I'm really excited to continue this one. Next, I have The Bodyguard by Catherine Center, and this will be my first Catherine Center novel, which may be a shocker to some of you. I know she is pretty well known for writing fairly clean rom-coms, or closed door at least. I did have another book of hers on my TBR that I was determined to make the first book that I ever read by her, but this one I think is going to take the cake. I'm going to buddy read this with a friend, and honestly we had to save it to spring because just look at the flowers and the pretty spring cover. I think this is going to be a little bit more of a rom-com. It has fake dating where this girl is this guy's bodyguard, but when they go home to visit his family, he doesn't want to take her as his bodyguard, so she pretends to be his fake girlfriend. And the last romance I have is one that comes out on April 1st, and that is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. Abby is one of the few romance authors that I continue to read, even though she doesn't write completely clean romances. Actually, I shouldn't even say completely clean. She does not write clean romances. But I do find that the times that she does have open door scenes, they aren't too terrible and they're pretty quick-lived. So they don't really bother me a ton because I can kind of skip right past them. She does have some language in her books, which isn't my favorite thing, but again, it is something that I can kind of skim over. This book is about a girl and a guy who I think they meet and have one really great date, but the girl decides that she's not really at a place in her life where she can commit to a relationship, but the guy just can't quite get over her, and it sounds like it's going to be a really sweet slow burn romance. I've really loved Abby's Part of Your World series, so I'm really hoping that this will continue on my love for her books. Next, I have a couple of fantasy books, and the first one is Apprentice to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Maurer. And I'm really excited for this one because I loved Assistant to the Villain. It kind of took me by surprise. I ended up reading that book twice through just because I really enjoyed the characters and the storyline, and I really like how quirky the main girl is in this series, and I also really enjoy morally gray characters, and the villain is definitely that. So I'm excited to continue, and because I loved the first book so much and gave it 5 stars, I'm really hoping that this will also be a 5-star read. And the only other fantasy book I'm going to put on this list is Hotel Magnifique by Emily J. Taylor. This book has been on so many TBRs of mine over the past few months, and I keep putting it off. I was really excited about this book. I even got a special edition of it, and I do really think that I could love this one. It's about a magical hotel that time travels, I think, and I don't know, I just feel like it could be a winner for me, and in an effort to not put it off any longer, I have put it on my spring TBR. Next, I have a couple of mystery novels, and the first one is Murder Runs in the Family by Tamara Berry. I cannot tell you all how excited I was that Tamara Berry was coming out with a new book. I think this is going to be the first in a series, but don't quote me on that. Anyways, if you don't know, Tamara Berry wrote Buried in a Good Book, which is the first cozy mystery that I fell in love with. So she definitely has a special place in my heart, and I'm really hoping to love this book. I think it follows a girl and her grandmother lives at an assisted living facility in Arizona, and there is some type of a murder mystery. And the other mystery novel that I have is The Night in Question by Susan Fletcher. This cover to me just looks like something perfect to read in the spring. I'm not sure if it takes place in the spring or not, but it just sounds really good. And I've been really, really hyped about this book. I haven't really heard anybody talk about it. My friend Lauren found it in a bookstore, and ever since then, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. But it says it's a lyrical and emotionally engaging novel infused with mystery and wisdom about love, friendship, and the power of forgiveness. I know there is an older lady that gets wrapped up in a mystery, potentially at this nursing home or assisted living facility that she's at. And I really love the first line of this one. People are always trying to find good first lines in books, and I really like this one. It says, 4 weeks ago, a man died. And the chapter title is Someone is Crying. So I don't know, I just am really drawn to this one, so I don't know why I haven't picked it up yet. So I'm really hoping that I will pick it up this spring. The next genre category is going to be historical fiction, which is not something I read a ton of, but when I read it, I typically enjoy it. So I'm hoping to get more of those read this spring. And the first one that I have is When the Day Comes by Gabrielle Meyer. I have heard nothing but good things about this one. It is a time travel romance, and I just feel like I could really love that. It follows our main character, Libby, and she has been given this gift where she lives 2 different lives. One is in 1774 colonial Williamsburg, and the other in 1914 Gilded Age New York City. When she falls asleep in one life, she wakes up in the other. But the kicker is, by the time she turns 21 years old, she has to decide which life she wants to continue on in because she can't continue in both. The next book is The Librarian Spy by Madeline Martin. I really love this author's other book, The Last Bookshop in London. I gave it 5 stars, and I really want to read all of her backlist books. So I'm going to read them in publication order, and this one is next. And it takes place during World War II, and it is inspired by the true history of America's library spies. And the last book I have is a historical romance. It is called Beyond Ivy Walls by Rachel Fordham. I really loved The Letter Tree by this author. I gave it 5 stars, and it is one of my favorite romances of all time. However, I read another one of her books, and it was just middle of the road for me, so I've been a little bit hesitant to pick this one up, but I do think there's potential for me to like it. It is set in Iowa in 1903, and it is reminiscent of Beauty and the Beast, following a recluse and a young woman who discovered that the scars of life are no match against an act of love. This next genre may come as a surprise to you because I don't read a lot of these books, and I don't plan to read a lot of these books, but this is going to be my classic section. I have 2. One is a reread, and one is, well, actually, you know what? The other one is kind of a reread too, but let me just get into it and I'll explain. So the first classic that I would like to read is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Now, the reason I say this is kind of a reread is because I did have to read this in high school, but did I actually read it, or did I just skim read it and use like Cliff Notes? Probably the latter. So this is going to be my first tried and true attempt at completing this book. I know that I don't typically gravitate towards classics because they're a little bit too detailed and oftentimes lack plot, but I've since watched this movie, the one with Keira Knightley, and ironically enough, the 20th anniversary of that movie is coming up, so I thought, what better time to read Pride and Prejudice? I am going to be buddy reading this with a friend because I think I will be able to get through it a little bit easier that way, and she's read it tons of times. She loves the movie, so we're going to do a little rewatch and reread, and hopefully I will be able to appreciate and love this one more. And the last classic is going to be a reread of my favorite classic and one of my favorite books of all time, and that is The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I don't know if you can see, but on this end of my bookshelf, I have so many copies of this book. I collect different editions that I find are really beautiful or that have different illustrations. And this one specifically is an annotated edition. And honestly, it's probably my prized possession right now because I'm so excited to have an annotated edition and get to learn more about Frances Hodgson Burnett and why she wrote this story. So this specific book has different insight on, for example, this part is a little bit about the film adaptations that have been made. And as you read along in the story, there's just different things about her life or what different things mean or why she decided to put different things in the story. So when I do my reread, I'm going to reread this edition. And I'm also, actually I didn't grab this, but it's right here on my shelf so I can grab it. I'm also going to read the Secret Garden devotional, which is a chapter by chapter companion to the classic. So I'm going to read that along with it too. And I cannot wait to jump back into this story. And the last section I have is going to be Christian fiction. And I have 3 of these books. The first one is Tea with Elephants by Robin Jones Gunn. I know that this author is really popular for I think middle grade series that she wrote called the Christie series. I didn't grow up with that series or read any of her other books, but I'm really intrigued by this one. It is the first in her Suitcase Sisters series, and this one is following 2 friends who travel to Africa together. I'm really excited to read this one. I'm buddy reading this one with a friend also, and I think that's going to make the reading experience even better. And I'm excited because her next book, I think, takes place in Italy, and it's following 2 girls who became friends because of their love of books. So I really need to start this, and I'm really excited to read it this spring. The next one is going to be a little bit of a spoiler alert. So if you participate in my Revive Christian Book Club, this is going to be our pick for May, and that is The Extraordinary Deaths of Mrs. Kipp by Sarah Brunswald. I have heard so many great things about this book, and I feel like this is a great time of year to read it because I know we're talking about new beginnings and stuff, right? And it does say deaths, but hear me out. I think the point of this story is to talk about living. And it says, all the wild ways to die could never compare to how she really lived. This is following a girl who is about to write an obituary for this lady who is on her deathbed, essentially. And that is Mrs. Kipp. And she is supposed to be this really fun, lively, eccentric, potentially lady that just lived a great life or appreciates things in her life. And she's going to teach this other girl about that. So this is a Christian novel about an unlikely friendship between these 2, and I cannot wait to hear what insight Sarah has and what different knowledge she is going to instill in me through this story. And the last book on my list is Counted with the Stars by Connellan Cassette. This is the first book in the Out from Egypt series, and it is a biblical fiction. I have really found that I enjoy biblical fiction, which is something that I never thought I would say. I specifically love Tessa Afshar, but I am giving some other biblical fiction authors a try. And this one, I think, is following someone who is part of the Exodus of Egypt. I don't know a lot about it or this author, but I'm really hoping that this can be another biblical fiction that I love. And those are all the books that I hope to read this spring. I may switch some out here and there. I'm obviously still letting myself mood read a lot, which is why you haven't seen any TBRs from me yet this year. But these are all books that I feel pretty confident that I'm going to get to this spring, if nothing less this year at least. But yeah, those are some of the books that are kind of on my radar, and I hope that I will love them all. If you have loved any of these books or think I should prioritize any of them this spring, please let me know down in the comments. But if you made it this far in the video, please leave me a spring flower emoji down in the comments. And as always, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, friends.